Hi there, welcome to today's video. I'm Jeanette with Vivo Vintage Designs. If you're new to my channel, welcome. I'm glad you're here. On this channel, we learn alcohol ink, watercolor, and other creative art projects together. All right, now that that's out of the way, let's get started. So here's a little painting that I thought I was recording, only to find that I never turned on the camera. And when I thought I was turning it off, I was actually turning it on and only recorded 9 seconds of nothing. So back to the studio for me. I get so caught up in the process and my thoughts that I forget to turn on the camera more often than I care to admit to. So I decided to do it on a larger scale. So here you can see I've sketched it out and then I went over it with a micron pen, just to make it stand out a little bit more. And all the supplies that I'm using will be listed in the description box as well as pinned to the comment section to make it easier for you to find. But I'm using some mixed media paper. I can't remember which one it is, but it'll be listed in the description box. I'm using silver black velvet brushes and my Kuretake Art Nouveau set. Now I brought out that flat brush thinking that I would use it, and then when I did try to use it, I just felt more comfortable using the large round brush. And I believe this one that I'm using here is a size 12. And they have such nice fine points that it makes it easy to get into really tight spaces. So for the background, sticking to the colors that I originally used, I'm using this really pretty light blue. Once I was finished with the background, I used my dryer to make sure that the background was completely dry before I started to fill in the table. Okay, so now that that's completely dry, I started to use the flat brush only to find that it was not as comfortable for me as the round brush. But of course, use whatever brushes you feel comfortable working with. There's no right or wrong way to paint. Paint in a way that makes you comfortable. So here I am switching back to the larger brush. And the table I want to make look like wood. So you'll see I'm going to fill it in with this beige color. And of course, you don't have to have Kuretake paints to do this painting. You can use whatever you have. You can use markers, acrylic paint, whatever you have. It doesn't have to be the products that I use. So now you see I've painted the beige table. And now while the paint is still wet, I'm adding different shades of brown. I'm just adding lines. Because later on, I'm going to add a little bit of detail to this to make it look more like wood. So you can see how those colors are blending in nicely because the original paint is still wet. So now I'm painting the cup in the center. And I should have actually started with the cup on top and then the one on the bottom. And while those two dried, then I could have painted the center cup. I don't know why I started with the one in the middle, but here we are. So I've chosen this really pretty light olivey green color. And once I was finished painting the cup, I picked up a darker shade of green to add some shadow. So you can see here that I'm adding the darker shade of green, and I'm adding it where I believe there should be some shadow. And with this type of painting, really don't worry so much about getting your shadows perfect. It really doesn't matter. This is a whimsical painting, and I think that what makes it so charming is that it's not perfect. Lines aren't straight, shadows aren't perfect. It's just a fun style of painting where you can hardly ever do anything wrong. So you can see that the green cup is now painted and I have dried it off camera. And now I'm mixing a red for the saucer that I'm going to paint. So I don't have a red that I really like on this palette, so I mixed a little, I believe it was indigo, with the red to deepen the color. And it gives me this kind of burnt orangey color. But indigo is a really strong color, so be careful if you're doing the same as I am. Add a little bit at a time. All right, so now my saucer is painted and I'm picking up the darker brown, and while the paint is still wet, I am adding this around the base of the cup and then on the rim of the saucer, and then I'll add some on the bottom of the saucer as well, because I believe that that would be in shadow. And then I decided to lift a little paint from the saucer just so that it didn't look so flat. So I'm cleaning my brush and I'm wiping it on the paper towel to remove any excess moisture. And you can see I'm just picking up a little bit of that paint so that, again, the saucer doesn't look so flat. And I waited until the green cup was completely dry so that I can paint in the handle. And I'm using the same green to paint in the handle, and then I'll pick up that darker shade of green and I'll add it where I feel there should be some shadow, which would be the underside of the handle and where the handle connects to the cup. Okay, so now we're going to paint the top cup, and you can see that I'm just mixing two colors right in the pan itself, and I'm going to paint this cup again following the colors that I used in the original painting. So you can see that I'm going across the sides and the bottom of the painting, and then the cup, and then I'm going to clean my brush off, and I'm going to use the water that is on the brush to blend those colors into the center. I want to leave a highlight in the center of the cup, so I want it to be a little bit lighter. And while that paint is still wet, I'm going to pick up a little bit of that brown, the darker shade of brown, and I'm going to add it to the sides and the bottom of the cup, again for shadow. Then I'm going to paint the bottom cup, and I wanted the red to be a little bit lighter than what I used for the saucer. So I'm adding more red to that mix that I have in that little mixing dish, and I'm going to add that to the cup. So if you stick around until the end of the video, I'm posting an outline of this painting. And if you're interested in recreating this painting, you can pause the video, take a screenshot, and then print it out to use as a traceable for your painting. And if you do this painting, I hope that you consider joining our Facebook group, Vivo Vintage Design Tutorials, where you can share your versions of the paintings and techniques learned on this channel. So now that the cup is painted, again, I'm picking up that shade of brown and I'm adding it around the sides. And then I decided to lift a little bit of that red out because I like the highlight in the center of the cup. So I'm just using a clean, damp brush and I'm lifting some of that paint off. And here, trying to lift off the green, which was already dry, was a little bit harder. So I'm just putting some water down in the center of that cup and using a paper towel to lift it off, and that made it a little bit easier. And then I just tried to soften up the edges a little, but it won't matter because I'm going to add a little bit of pattern because you know I can't leave things this simple. So now I am adding the coffee, and yes, I have a New Jersey accent. We say coffee, not coffee. So I'm filling in the top cup, and I'm going to make it look as though there is a little coffee in there. So I just used the same color that I used for the cup, and now using a smaller brush, I'm lifting a little bit of that paint out so that the back of the cup shows. And now I've picked up the darker brown and I'm adding it to the cup, but I want to make it look like there's a little swirl, like this is a cup of espresso and there's a little swirl of foam in it. So using the tip of the brush and that darker shade of brown, I just went around and created a little swirl. And I really liked the way that looked. The beige that I used to fill in the center kind of looks like the foam. And then the darker brown looks like the coffee, and I was really happy with that. Now here I got a little nervous because I wanted to add some steam coming from this cup of coffee, but I wasn't sure how it would look or what I was doing, to be honest with you. But you can see that I'm using a small brush, and I decided to take my own advice. It's only paper and paint, and I took the chance, and I was really happy with the way it turned out. I just started with the tip of the brush, and as I pulled that brush across the paper, I added pressure so that my lines would become a little bit broader, and as I swirled it, I lifted to the point to end the that little swirl with a tapered tip. And I was really happy with the way it turned out. It turned out much better than I had expected. So now I'm taking my micron pen, and this has a small nib. I think this may be a 0.30, and I'm going to outline everything with the micron pen to make it stand out a little bit more and to clean up the edges. Once I was finished outlining everything, of course I have to add a little bit of detail, so I grabbed my Artex acrylic paint pens and I started to draw these circles on the red cup, and then I added dots in the circles, and then I added smaller circles to fill in that area. And I just used a beigey color. And of course you can create whatever pattern you want in your cups. These markers are so great. So for the green cup, I chose a yellow marker, and I wanted to keep this one a little bit simple. So I just drew in some lines, and you can see that I'm kind of curving these lines to follow the shape of the cup. Now for the smaller cup, I chose a peachy marker, and again keeping it really simple, just a few lines and then some circles in between the two lines on top. So now we're going to add the wood texture to the table. And this was so much fun. I'm using a micron pen again. I think this is a 0.30. And all I'm going to do is add some lines. And most of them will be straight. But every now and then you'll see that I add a little curve to the line. And then I make some little swirls in between two lines. So you can see I'm making those two lines a little bit wider in the center and then adding the swirls. And then I'll add a few more straight lines. And every now and then I'll add another swirl. I didn't want to add too many because I thought it would make it look too busy, and I did use a marker with a smaller nib because I don't want the attention to be drawn to the table surface. I want the cups to be what catches your eye. But adding this wood texture was a lot of fun, and I thought it added another really nice detail element to the painting. And it was so easy to do. And you can see that having added those different colors adds to the feel and really does kind of make it look like wood. And then I wanted the steam to stand out a little bit more, so I just outlined one side to add a little bit of shadow. And I was so happy with this painting. So having forgotten to turn on the camera turned out to be a real blessing because I was so happy with this painting. So now, of course, looking at it, it seems a little bit plain to me, so I brought out my alcohol ink markers and I decided to add some stripes to the background, and you can see my lines aren't straight. They're kind of skippy and sketchy here and there, and that's okay. That only adds to the whimsy and the charm of the painting. And of course, you don't have to add these lines. You can do whatever you like, but I get very carried away, and I was actually trying to contain myself with this painting, but I couldn't leave the background so plain, and I was really happy with the way it turned out. I'm pretty proud of myself. I did not add the horizontal lines like I did in the original painting. I did manage to control myself and just add the vertical stripes, making it look kind of like wallpaper. I think the horizontal stripes would have been too much. So in any case, I hope that you have enjoyed this video and that you give it a try. Be sure to stick around till the end where I will post an outline for you to use for your version of this painting. Thank you so much for watching. I will see you in the next one. Bye.